Welcome to Tokyo Game Life, a Tokyo-based video game podcast focusing on Nintendo and gaming culture in Japan's capital. Your host Mono here to bring you a slice of gaming life from Tokyo. Nintendo superfan Daan Koopman is back to regale us about his trip to PokePark Kanto, the newest Pokemon theme park right here in Tokyo at YomiuriLand. We dive into how the Kanto region was brought to life and what you should do if you bump into Junichi Masuda. In the games, I take a look at the utterly addicting Pokemon Pokopia. Plus, I check out the latest news, including, yes, more Pokemon. Let's get into the feature on PokePark Kanto with Daan Koopman. Today's feature is about PokePark Kanto, the newest Pokemon-themed section in YomiuriLand, right outside of Tokyo. Joining me is a special guest. So guest, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Daan Koopman. I go on the internet as Nintendaan. In my daily life, I'm a senior QA tester. Online, I write and make videos about video games.
Thank you so much for joining me. Last time you were on the podcast, we talked about the Donkey Kong Country section of Universal Studios Japan, and now you're back with another themed area, PokePark Kanto. Despite the fact that I live in Japan, you have once again bested me when it comes to visiting Nintendo-themed attractions in Japan. So I'm really excited to hear about your perspectives on it. So give us the basic pitch. What is PokePark Kanto?
PokePark Kanto is a part of YomiuriLand, like you said. It's way back at the end of the park, so you have to walk literally for the entire park to get there. And it's basically a separate gate. So you basically enter and showcase a QR code that can be on paper, that can also be on the mobile app. They do recommend the mobile app. They scan, they give you an introduction, they check your bags, and then you go in. There's a little introductory area with a bunch of Eevee and Pikachu who are looking towards you as you come in. You enter Big Plaza. There is what's called Satch Town, which is more of a market with actual regular attractions, which are only 2 of them. And then if you want to go to the proper merch store, you have to go outside the gate and have a time slot there. And there's also a separate gate for the actual Pokeforest where all the statues are.
Yeah, it was announced in late 2023, so quite a long build-up. And at that time, it was kind of ambiguous about what it was going to be. But the name PokePark Kanto did make me hope that they would recreate the Kanto region in some way. And this replaces the previous Pokemon event at YomiuriLand, which was Pokemon Wonder. Did you ever go to Pokemon Wonder at all?
No, I did not. This was my first time in YomiuriLand. Unfortunately, the day I went, it was snowy. So most of the regular YomiuriLand, which is included in your package, I actually couldn't go into because most of the attractions were actually closed. Which is also a unique experience because I've been into Tokyo a lot and across multiple times of the year, but I was never there when it was snowing in that immediate area because I just came away from Sapporo, which is extremely snowy.
Yes.
And then I come to Tokyo and hey, there's still some snow here. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting challenge.
Yeah. It really only snows maybe once or twice a year in Tokyo. So you got maybe lucky or unlucky, depending on how you think about it.
Unlucky in the sense that unfortunately the rides were closed for the majority of the day. I could end them at the end of the day, which I still did. But I had the expensive pass, so I got like guaranteed tickets for both. And I basically hold on to them and didn't even use them because I just wanted to keep them as a souvenir. But yeah, for the majority of the day, and a good chunk of people left by that time, it was just right on, and I didn't have to wait that much longer. Because the majority of people figured it wouldn't be happening anymore today. In addition to that, there's also a stage show, which is indoors, which constantly kept running, which is more of a gym-like setting with a little adventure with Pikachu and a girl, which was also really well done because it's very Japanese inspired. There's a lot of participation with you clapping along and stuff.
Yeah, going back to Pokemon Wonder for a little bit, this was YomiuriLand's original Pokemon event or Pokemon-themed attraction, and it was from summer 2021 to about summer 2023, and it was what I can only describe as an immersive outdoor escape game. You were given a map and you explored nature, trying to find quote-unquote real Pokemon by solving clues. And this was legit one of the best gaming-related things I've done in Japan, but it is practically unknown in the West because you can't take pictures because of the game aspect of it, and they don't want you to share it on social media. And the reservation system was also really weird. It was only open kind of randomly, but I did cover it on this podcast. So listeners, go check out my Pokemon Wonder episode after that. But what I really loved about that event is that it truly felt like you were in the games. It was so incredibly immersive and authentic. And PokePark Kanto seems to be the spiritual successor to the idea of placing you into the Pokemon world. So before we step into the park, I want to know about how you actually were able to attend. What was it like getting tickets since you managed to get in pretty soon after it opened?
It wasn't as bad as, say, Universal. So, for context, in Japan, for PokePark, they did a lottery system. In the West, you were actually locked out of that lottery system. So they would guide you to a different website. It would automatically pop up. Even if you would put in the lottery website, it would immediately recognize that you're outside of Japan and put you on a different reservation website, which you would straight up just buy the tickets.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how limited they were per day, but they were immediate. It's like, hey, this day is available, this day is available. It would constantly crash on that first day, to no one's surprise. Yes. So we had planned supper until the day after it opened. So we arrived on Friday evening and immediately went that Sunday. So it was almost like an immediate gap of a day and a half where we could relax and then immediately going to the other side of Tokyo. And obviously, it was straightforward as that. It's for Westerners, it's not as difficult. You just need to be aware of which slots are open and when you can actually go.
Yeah, anyone can buy tickets now, but you got to reserve your spot 2 months ahead of time. So if you want to go May 15th, you got to buy it on March 15th. And it opens up at 6 p.m. Japan time. So you got to be on your computer to snag those tickets, which I haven't yet. And I'm waiting until later in May before I go. But until then, I really want to hear about your experiences with PokePark Kanto. So let's go inside the park. You say you go to the gate, and what's the first place you enter?
So the main gate is that you get your bags checked and then they scan your tickets. You get a voucher for if you buy the more expensive tickets from, hey, this is where you need to go. So I opted for the full experience. You walk through an indoor area where you see Eevees and Pikachus looking up at you, and then you go through the square. So the square is where basically I would say the magic happened, because you get that first introduction to what PokePark Kanto is really. It's where you find the stage show. It's where you find the marketplace with the little trinkets you can buy and the food and drinks. The 2 attractions are there. There are some statues as well here. They're more meant as, I would say, more photo op-ish compared to, say, the ones that you'll find in the actual forest. For example, there's a 4-way battle next to the gym with a Garchomp and a Gyarados and a Raichu. There is a gigantic cake with Alcremie. There is, at the Pikachu attraction, there are a bunch of different electric Pokemon running around, including also the lowland form of Raichu. There is the recreation of the scene at the start of the original games, with the 2 Pokemon fighting each other, which is really cool. And then more to the left side, there's the Ferris wheel with all the different Eevees on them. There's some random Pokemon, both versions of Vulpix. And then at the back, there's more the Pokemon Center where the Kanto starters are. And also a Pokemark with more goodies. So that's the initial experience you have there. And there's definitely statues like running around, like even more than I'm describing right now. You seek them out specifically when you just walk through the main gate of that area. Then you have to go outside again if you want to go to the main merch store and then to the Pokemon Forest. The Pokemon Forest specifically, you need either a time slot for or the highest pass. If you have the highest pass, you can go in as much as you like. So you can just keep circling back, go outside of the park and go back into the forest as much as you would like. And then there's different types of themed areas. The first area in that Pokemon Forest is themed after Route 1. After that, it becomes slightly more abstract and differentiating in what they show. There's a whole Bidoof area with them doing some construction and just living their own life. There is more of an area where all the birds hang. There's more of a rock ground area where you see Rhydon, Steelix, and a bunch of others. And it ends with a garden with also Charmander and Charizard being there.
Yeah, so interesting. I didn't realize it was so broken up. Like you needed permission, quote unquote permission, or a ticket to access each kind of individual aspect of the park. So that's a little surprising to hear. But since it is so crowded, I have to assume this is their initial plan, and maybe they will be a bit more lenient once it becomes I don't want to, I guess it will become less crowded just by default, but it's probably still extremely crowded. So yes, there are two main parts, like you said, Sedgetown, which is like a Gen 1 style Pokemon city, and the Pokemon Forest. So when you enter the park, do you get to pick between, I want to enter Sedgetown first, or I want to enter Pokemon Forest first, or are you funneled kind of like a straight line, or how does it work exactly?
You walk past the sign where you see the Pokemon statues there, and then immediately at your left, there's the Pokemon Forest. So if you have a specific time slot and they're holding signs for the time slots, then you would immediately just walk in, because obviously once you lose it, so you rather do it as quickly as possible. Then you would walk right and then walk back left to go into the actual Sedgetown. And right, they will also hold signs for the reservations for the store. So both the store and the Pokemon Forest requires a time slot. You cannot go in otherwise. But Sedgetown, as long as you have a valid ticket, you can just walk in.
Okay. Yeah, interesting that you can pick which one, I guess, quote unquote pick, but there are multiple ways you can go. You can go into the forest first or into Sedgetown first. The shop also requires like a different ticket. Hopefully, I hope the bathrooms did not require some sort of time ticket and you were freely able to enter. All right, so let's step into Sedgetown. There's shops, there's rides, shows, like you explained earlier, and a real-life Pokemon Center. First of all, what do you think about them making an original town? Would you have liked it to be a place from the actual games, like Cerulean City, for example, or did you like that they made an original Gen 1 town?
I think they did better with making an original town, because Gen 1 towns were pretty much straightforward. There was not really a market. Those were really in later games. So to me, it makes sense to create something that stands on its own and stands in its own little bubble. Obviously, with a name like PokePark Kanto, you maybe expect more references directly to Kanto. At the same time, like, it was really well laid out. It was never too crowded. You could easily walk through it. And even if it was crowded, you could easily go take the routes at the left and the right to go to either to the attractions or just straight closer to the back.
Yeah, a major trend in theme park designs these days is immersion. When you think back to the Donkey Kong Country in Universal Studios, it felt like you were inside Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii.
Yes.
And they want you to feel like you were inside the setting. And we've seen both ideas in the theme park world of making an original place in the setting or just recreating the actual thing. And I'm not quite sure in general what people prefer, but I think both can be done equally well as long as they capture the spirit of the setting.
Yes.
And just from looking at it, I really do love that they were faithful to the kind of Gen 1 design aesthetic of the Pokemon Center, of the Pokemon Mart. Those have been iterated upon in many Pokemon games. The Paldean Pokemon Center is quite different from the Kanto Pokemon Center. So I do like that they are really harkening back to what you remember Gen 1 looking like. So out of everything in Sedgetown, what would you say is the highlight?
So you could all just call them separate, because once again, they're different intervals of looking at it. So if I look at it from the perspective of shopping, I would definitely say getting the pins is the most fun experience. It's also the longest experience because you're waiting in line for 35 minutes. But you basically get to the desk, they ask you, hey, how many pins you want to buy? The max is 10. And I was straight up like, give me 10. So they hand you a bag, they put 10 Pokeballs and also an empty Premier Bowl in there as an extra. And yeah, there are different pins in there of the first 151 Pokemon. Which I've had so much fun like opening these, and I didn't get a bad one, I feel. But yeah, that's the best one. There's a reason for you to grab those because they're very colorful, they're really well designed. I honestly think it's the best merch that PokePark has, if I'm being completely 100% honest. Like, even stuff in the merch store I like, but it's also pretty standard, like, Pokemon Center stuff. Like, it's pins, it's the mugs, it's the umbrellas, it's the folders, it's formulaic. Not necessarily in the sense that it's bad, but you know what you're getting. And that's both positive and negative. I think with the pins, they went all out, and I like those specifically because they look really cool. From more attraction standpoint, the Pokemon Center is fun, but very short. Like, they basically ask you for your plushies, and they recharge your Pokemon plushies. It's really cute. But I do think, like, the actual Sedgetown theater show is way better. It's way more better than people give credit for. And obviously, you cannot record it. There's a pre-show, which is a pretty cool pre-show. It's DJ Pikachu from last year doing a whole DJ set with remixes and then sometimes getting swapped out by Eevee. it's actually really well done. Then there's a full theater show of 25 minutes with a Pikachu not being so confident about itself and getting like better, and you have fights with Team Rocket, and it's really neat, really choreographed. And then there's an after show where all the Pikachu costumed characters come on stage and you can take pictures as much as you like. So that whole experience takes about, I would say, 45 minutes to 50, and it's so incredibly worth it. I had such a good time sitting there, and it was a really fun little story. Eating wise, my problem with Japanese like themed places, and maybe where I'm going with this, is the majority of them are not that good. I will say I had some of the best themed food outside of Kirby Cafe in PokePark Kanto. Like, there was some good coffee, there was some really nice gay and some other stuff. It was actually well seasoned and well made. So in general, like, those three aspects, like, they were fun. I would say for the majority of the day, I couldn't obviously go in the two actual attractions that were there. And obviously they were more kiddie shaped. It was a Ferris wheel and one of those fly rides. But at least being able to see them and see the statues that are surrounding them was at least really cool.
Yeah, going back to the pins a little bit, what's so special about these pins? By pins, you mean like pin patches, correct? You put them on, for example, your jacket or your backpack.
Yeah, they're the actual pins with the actual Pokemon bags. So I actually got a pin bag from PokePark Kanto, which, once again, it's a bit formulaic, but the design of the pin bag was actually really well, because you could actually, in the front of the plastic, there were just round Pokeball. So basically you would display 6 Pokemon like a team, which is a really well clever design. But no, those pins, like, were really colorful and have really strong backgrounds. Like, usually, either with a pin, for example, with the Pokemon Center pins, it's a round circle for the Pokemon Center logo, and the Pokemon more popping out of the pin. Here, the whole pin it's popping out because they created a little background for them, maybe an aesthetic design aspect that would make them instantly recognizable, and then the Pokemon up front with the PokePark Kanto logo.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now. They look really different from what you would expect from like the Pokemon Center pins.
Yes.
And yeah, somebody is selling quite a lot of them for about $500 on eBay. So you might have a fortune on your hands.
I found cheaper lots at Macari. I found like 16 pins for $90, which I might grab some of those that I didn't get. So who knows? I like the look of them a lot. They look really fun.
Now, in Sedgetown, there are 2 rides. Pika Paradise, which is like a flying Dumbo ride from Disneyland, and VV Voyage, which is a EV-themed carousel.
Yes.
Did you go on these rides at all?
Yeah. So, once again, I did them at the end of my day because it was snowing all day, so I had to clean it up as well. VV Voyage is just a really cute ride with a bunch of different places to sit. I sat near the Sylveon, and that was pretty fantastic. And it was just standard Ferris wheel fare, very standard music too. It was a remix. I can't recall which remix it was because it has been a while. And then with the Pikachu ride, yeah, it's basically a Dumbo ride where you fly into a car, and like a lot of electric Pokemon surrounding it, and there's some really pretty lights. It's most standard element of the park, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, they do like very kind of like toddler or very young kid-centric rides. Yes. It's not Minecart Madness from Donkey Kong Country Returns in Universal Studios, which personally I do think it is a good idea because the 30-plus-year-olds are going to be mostly shopping and taking photos. So it's good to have some areas that are like, listen, adults, this is not for you. Let the kids have their moment over here. Do you think they will add any rides in the future, or does it look pretty packed as it is?
It looks pretty full as is, yeah, unfortunately. I will say, though, like, there's the funnest aspect I had as well. So I mentioned this earlier, I had the most expensive pass. You get some really interesting quirks that I didn't see done much else. You walk up to the station where you hand over your voucher. They hand you like this passport booklet with the things that you can do as an ace trainer. And the first things they basically tell you is, hey, you can take a picture on demand with Pikachu and Eevee, the costumed characters, inside of a house. Do you want to go there right now? And you stand in the line, and they take a whole bunch of pictures, both digitally and on your phone. And then when you come back, they're like, so which picture of these do you want framed? And the rest you can just download through a QR code. Which is both, they took 5-6 pictures, which is extremely generous. Like, they did it with different angles. They were very helpful with getting the right angles that you wanted. They did it all now. And next to that, you get some additional merch. You get some nice quirks. Once again, you can go inside of the Poke Forest as much as you like, which I definitely took advantage of and did 3-4 times before I ended my day. But you don't need it. Like, I'll be straight up with that. You don't need it. I did it as a one-time off, because one time in the Poke Forest is enough. It's not a long area, unfortunately. The outside makes it seem like it's this grandeur area with a lot of things to do, and you will spend a good chunk of your time there. I think the first time around when you're actually exploring it, it will take under an hour, because it's not long. And especially on a secondary visit, or you just going through it and walking, it's about 15. Yeah,
that makes sense. I kind of wonder, I've been to YomiuriLand's Pokemon Wonder event, and I kind of wonder, is it in the exact same spot? And I remember it was very built into nature, and YomiuriLand's kind of whole gimmick is that, unlike Disneyland, which is like paved over and they build like a whole new world on this land, YomiuriLand is supposed to be a bit more integrated into the natural environment. Yes. And so the Pokemon Forest is a good idea about that. And that's how Pokemon Wonder was as well. Now, I want to go back to the Pokemon Gym a little bit. So I'm curious about how this opens. Is it like, or how this operates? Is there certain time periods for the show? Like, for example, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock? And is it large enough to hold a lot of people? Or was there kind of a hassle in order to go and see the show?
The show is in 50 to an hour intervals. And then the main thing is, I have a bit of a skewed experience because I got a reserved time slot for it. So I could just walk in without standing in a line. So I would just walk in, and immediately when you come in, you see the 2 gym statues. You walk through those, and then head into the actual gym area, so the stage area. The stage area, I would say, holds a decent amount of people. There are sitting seats and just regular seats. I wouldn't call it massive. It's decently sized for the type of show it tries to be. Like, it's very typical, like, Japanese little stage show. But I wouldn't say it packs all the people you can easily muster.
Okay. Do you think it would be fairly easy to attend, though, without a reserved time slot?
Yeah. If you are decently on time, it shouldn't be too much of a hassle. I saw people still walk into the building the very last minute before the show started.
So when you're inside the gym, does it really look like a kind of a Gen 1 style gym, or is it a bit more generic?
I would say the actual sides and the actual stage front feels very gym-esque. Obviously, the back is basically theater. So it's basically the front end feels like a gym, and then the back end is just a theater setting.
You mentioned this earlier, but one of the most impressive immersive areas in the whole park looks to be the Pokemon Center, which is themed like the ones from the game and features not Nurse Joy, since technically that is an anime creation, but a Pokemon nurse. Yes. So you mentioned before, you take your plushies and they heal it, or what do you actually do in the Pokemon Center?
That's all you do.
So are you like in a line and you give it to the nurse and something? Yeah. Is there like a huge line for like people wanting to meet the nurse?
Yes, there's a decent sized line, yes. It goes pretty quickly because you're not there longer than a few minutes because you are free to take pictures and stuff. But outside of that, there's not much you can do. So it goes by relatively quickly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I looked inside and it looks really authentic. They have awesome, like a map of Kanto on the side of it as well. And so would you say the inside, it looks really authentic to the Pokemon Centers in the game?
Yes, it does.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about the merch. You mentioned the pins earlier, and there are some other exclusive items. So besides the pins, was there any other merch that really stood out to you?
The thing that stood out to me are the more basic stuff, right? The plushies, the standard pins with the PokePark Kanto logo. Those are the stuff that I usually gravitate to. I would say particularly the Eevee plush. I have it in my bedroom and I really like looking at it. But like when it comes to merch outside of that bubble, I would say they have a lot of well-sized t-shirts. Unfortunately, the one that I chose is a size too small. But they have a lot of sizes for being a Japanese theme park. It goes to up 5L, LL.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I don't have seen that in any other Japanese theme park. So if you want something PokePark Kanto related and you're not stupid like I am, you are likely going to get the right size. But outside of that, there's a lot of good VV Voyage themed merch. There's a bunch of just more generic around the park. It's a bit of everything. I would say the best merch outside of the pins and like the plushies, there is some really cool Pokemon headbands and hats. There's literally a Psyduck hat, which is the top half of his face. There's more hats like that go around your head, like for example what's the scroll Pokemon again? The normal scroll Pokemon.
Scovit?
Scovit, yes, of Scovit. It's little things like that. I didn't think the merch was as big of a deal as I thought it would be, but it was nice merch. It was not like made very easily or made on a dime. There was a lot, so much so that I was like, maybe I will be back here at some point in the future, or I'll just buy it from Akari. But I spent a good chunk of it, but I feel like I still went under budget with what I actually got.
Yeah, I think the dilemma for a lot of these themed areas, especially Nintendo themed areas, is that, a lot of merch already exists. Like when you go to Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios, yeah, you could buy a Mario plush, but you could buy a Mario plush anywhere. So they do have to think about, what are some really interesting exclusive merch that we can make? Now, there's also a lot of food options, which you touched on earlier. There's the Pokemart, Pikachu's Onigiri Shop, Eevee's Cafe, Snorlax Popcorn, and Alteria's Roost Kitchen. Which ones did you go to?
I did some of these. I would say the best was Alteria's Roost Kitchen. That's where the karage was and the sandwiches. Those were honestly really good. I did do a few of the drinks at the Pokemart, and those were fine too. I think the best part, it was that, and there was an Eevee cafe where you could have like a latte and then a printed of one of your favorite evolution on there. And that tasted also like really good for a Japanese latte, which are a bit more on the milky side. It was actually really decent.
Yeah. Now, Sedgetown also has a lot of photo ops. Do you have a favorite photo op out of everything in Sedgetown?
Oh, the Greninja. Easily. That's not even a question. I think the Greninja with the graffiti behind it and standing in a pose and you can pose next to it is super ideal. I love that. That was the easiest question you could answer.
Yeah, not a Kanto Pokemon, so I don't know how he got over there, but he managed to get into Kanto region somehow, some way.
It makes sense, right? Greninja from the Japanese poll a few years ago is like in the top 5 and still is. So, like, from that perspective, I totally get it.
Yeah. Greninja is also one of my personal favorites. So when I saw that photo op online, I thought, yeah, I'm definitely swinging by there. Now, you actually bumped into somebody special at PokePark Kanto, none other than Junichi Masuda, the composer of the original Pokemon games and the director of many classic titles. So, Daan, how did this happen?
I'll be honest, it happened by complete accident. So I was actually recording some video to save. I didn't have an intention to post that video. I just wanted to save. So I brought my DJI and was filming. And the friend I was with was in my ears like, hey, Masuda is here. I'm like, wait, really? I was still wrapping up. So I wrapped that up, walked to where he said he was, and he was still there. He was busy at the moment. He was talking to staff. So I just let it be because I'm trying to be respectful. Walked around the area. And then I noticed he started taking pictures with people. And I'm like, okay, this is the chance to walk up to him and say hello. So I handed my phone to... And you can see in the photos, it's not the typical photos that somebody would take. Because it's me bowing and shaking his hand. That's not something that usually happens. Especially when you have like your own choreographed way of filming a shot. That's usually not what happens. So I handed my phone to a member of the Pokemon Company. I'm pretty sure his assistant. And they would take the pictures. And I spoke with him a little bit. And then we did one pose and the rest was like, she just took pictures when she felt like it. But we had a very short conversation and he asked me how I thought of it. And he said that I had somewhat of a familiar face. And I told him we met at Worlds 2022 in London.
Oh, wow.
And then he ended with thank you for coming. And that was the majority of our conversation. But it was weird to see him because obviously this was days after the park already opened. So I have the feeling he went because it was snowing.
Yeah, I've had more than a few acquaintances who said, oh, I went to the Pokemon Center the day such and such Pokemon game came out, and Omori was there or Masuda was there. I've unfortunately never had the honor, but many other people who I know just randomly bumped into him just by happenstance. You got this amazing moment. And yeah, you mentioned before, it was snowing, and you had a very atypical experience, but one that is, I think, really cool because you got to see, snow on the Pokemon Center, which is pretty different from Gen 1. There's not a whole lot of snow in Gen 1. So, yeah, a very cool experience in my opinion.
Here's the thing. Like, the fact that I got that type of experience, I will never forget because I don't ever experiencing snow in Tokyo in the last several times that I went. Like, I went through the winter and autumn 4 or 5 times. This is the first time I actually seen snow in Tokyo, which honestly in itself was a pretty cool experience.
It snows, like I said before, like maybe once or twice, and then maybe you're lucky if there's one day where the snow actually sticks. So you got very lucky on that day.
To be fair, I've been pretty lucky this winter. Normally in Western Europe, and it has been the case since 2010, there's barely any snow. This is the first week we had a full 9 days of snow. So I do feel like this particular winter, I've been pretty lucky when it comes to snow.
Awesome. All right, let's pop into the Pokemon Forest for a little bit more. So what were some notable Pokemon statues or scenes that you saw? Also, are they all like big porcelain statues, or are some Pokemon represented in a different way?
They're big statues or like properly designed size. So the first route is literally Route 1 of the games, with using Oddish and Pidgeys and those types of Pokemon. The introductory area of the forest. The second area is more focused around Pikachu and Eevee and more cute scenes with Pikachu and Eevee and a bunch of them just walking around. Then, from that point onward, it becomes more abstract with different Pokemon. I would say the next area is more Excalibur and Drillbur focused, but there is also other Pokemon there. Also, for example, a Gengar peeking in the background. There is a Scovit and Birds type of area. Then there's the Bidoof area. From there, you also see some Goomy. And then you go into a more rougher area with Rhyhorn, where you climb up. You go into a cave and you see fossils, Sableye. You immediately pop out and there is just an Onyx there. And then you see Furrets and then a Steelix later. Then you get into a forest with Blossom, with Bidoo, with a bunch of grass Pokemon, with a Charmander and Charizard somewhere waiting there in the middle. And then you walk out.
So what was the atmosphere like? Did it feel like you were inside the games with all the natural environment and then the Pokemon?
It felt very well themed. It was extremely well themed, especially the Bidoof area with them either working or lying around and chilling, just living their life. Like a part of the actual path is blocked off by statues. They actually have to climb up to the higher plane of the Bidoof area. I thought that was really well done. Like it was really well suited. There is, by the way, a shiny in that entire route, which is a shiny Goomy, which is completely feels random. But he's just there, and you hear the shiny sound from the music in the background.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's one of those if you know, you know types of things. So that's a really awesome inclusion. And they say in the future that, we're going to change out the Pokemon. Like some Pokemon will evolve. Some Pokemon will be more themed to the weather or the season. So I'm really curious to see what they do with that. Yeah. But as it is now, it sounds really exciting. I didn't know that it was so diverse where you're going through like caves and things like that.
I do want to say, as somebody whose favorite Pokemon is Wooper, not seeing Wooper in there is a shame, especially considering how there are black and white Pokemon in this. Excalibur is in there, which is a friend of mine's favorite Pokemon. So when I sent him the photos, he got really excited. Yeah, the closest to me are Goomy and Bidoo, which obviously I took pictures with. But yeah, for the rest, it was still really cool. It just felt I was searching for my favorites and they weren't there.
Yeah, I'm pretty basic. My favorite is Bulbasaur. So I think Bulbasaur is probably well represented in PokePark Kanto. Yeah. One odd thing about the park is that children under 5 are completely banned from Pokemon Forest, even with a guardian. So is Pokemon Forest that dangerous?
It's very levitated and you have to walk a lot of stairs. So yeah, it 100% makes sense. I don't think they don't want to deal with that. And they're completely valid in that assessment because after the Excadrill and Jober area, you have to walk a steep bit down, and I don't necessarily think that's suited for children of that age.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was a little shocked that, this seems like the perfect thing for young kids to go into, but they're like, oh no, this is for the bigger kids and the adults. But the way you're describing it, where it does feel like you are going through like a legitimate real forest, there are quote unquote like more steeper or dangerous areas. That's so unique in the theme park world. So to make it be like, okay, this is more authentic to nature and authentic to the Pokemon world is just such an interesting idea.
I agree.
So what tips would you give to people visiting PokePark Kanto for the first time?
I would go for a regular slot. Try to book it at the early inconvenience that you can and when it's available. So if you come on a brighter day, try to get a slot as early as possible so you can start with PokePark Kanto and maybe explore the rest of the theme park afterwards. Because I feel that was still the biggest shame that I couldn't see like the rest of the theme park proper. And I was talking to my friend about that. If this was a regular day, I'm sure we would have left PokePark Kanto at some point and went to the other attractions to check them out a little bit. Because, like, the majority of Westerners, and that's the truth, have never been to YomiuriLand. I knew about it a little bit, because I'm a big theme park head, but I never went because it was out of the way to the things I needed to do. And if you're going there anyway, especially as somebody who is not from the area, it would be wise to be there as early as possible so you basically can do everything.
Do you think they would do a PokePark Johto or Hoenn? And if so, what would you like to see in those versions?
Hard to say. I'm not sure if a park like that can be completely standalone, especially since the first one is part of a bigger theme park. It needs to be bigger. That's the majority and biggest element of it. Or it needs to be just cheap. Either it needs to be a cheap entry, or it needs to be part of a bigger theme park. And either or, I don't necessarily think that's something that Pokemon wants to do. But if they do want to expand this aspect of their business, they will need to somewhat give and take. It's going to be a difficult one. Don't get me wrong. It's never a balancing act, especially if you look now. They're also working on a Universal Studios Osaka attraction. So they're still dipping their toes in the things that they want to do and want to see. But if they want to make more like a Johto or a Hoenn, as you said, then they need to be more realistic in how they're going to set those expectations. Like, one of the places I would think that maybe would work for a expansion of PokePark. So where's the place that Dragon Quest Island is? OG Island. I think if you can get a piece of ground there, which is going to be difficult with how many properties there are on that site, but if you can get like a good chunk of land there, then maybe that's a realistic expectation to do it there. But outside of that, I don't think it's really difficult to attain a sort of piece of land where you can really properly do this with.
Okay, final question that has nothing to do with PokePark Kanto. Have you already decided your starter for Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves?
Oh, Pombon. And again, that's a very easy question. I love dogs and cats, so obviously last time I took Sprigatito. Like, I love house animals. So, to me, Pombon is a very easy choice. The easiest choice I will likely ever make. I am worried choosing a fire starter in a very watery type area. You choose the Pokemon you feel the most comfortable with. I do like the grass starter. I do like Grout. Gekra, I can take it or leave it. I need to see more of his evolution stages before I make a judgment on that.
Yeah, for me, I'm on Team Gekwa because I really love amphibian and reptilian starters. But what you said before, that did make me think that, picking the water starter in the water region, maybe that's not the best idea. So maybe secretly Brout is actually the best choice for Winds and Waves.
Secretly the best choice if you think about it, but I'm still going with my heart.
That was a look at PokePark Kanto. So Daan, thank you very much for sharing your insight. I definitely want to do a second episode on it when I eventually go. But until that time, in the meantime, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere at Nintendan. It's NANTNDAN. So Twitch, Blue Sky, X, a little bit. But most places. Trying to boot up some stuff again, but you can easily find it under that name.
Awesome. And the links to everything are in the podcast description, so listeners, check it out. Daan Koopman, once again, thank you so much for joining me.
No worries.
Pokemon Pokopia, or Poko a Pokemon in Japanese. Both are kind of weird in the mouth, but this was announced at the last General Nintendo Direct all the way back in September. Yes, it's been that long. and it is a major new spin-off for the world's most popular IP. I gotta admit, when I first saw this, I thought, alright, this seems fine, not for me, but people will like this. But it was revealed that it was being developed by the Dragon Quest Builders 2 team at Koei Tecmo, and then fans of that series started saying, guys, you don't know what you're in for, you need to get hyped. I've never played the Builders games, but it's one of those franchises where people whose gaming taste I respect really talk up Builders. Even so, I do feel that people were treating Pokopia as just a side thing, another weird spin-off on the Switch 2 instead of a mainline game. But reviews came out, and it became the highest rated game of 2026. Seriously. And it doesn't even have Leon in it. So we all owe the Builders fans an apology. They were right. It has its hooks in me, and it's easily in the upper tier of Pokemon spin-offs. Maybe just Pokemon games in general. And maybe just all games. It's that fun. It's a fresh idea for the Pokemon franchise, but it is also very faithful to many elements from the games, and lets players use and interact with Pokemon in completely new ways. I've always felt this was a struggle for the franchise, because you really just use Pokemon in fairly violent ways in the main game, and Game Freak has experimented with how the player interacts with Pokemon in non-violent ways, and this is really that idea brought to its maximum potential. Take Pokemon, take Minecraft, take Animal Crossing, take Dragon Quest Builders, mix them together, and what do you got? A delicious gaming gumbo. I'll try to avoid this episode's game section just being me listing off all the mechanics, but there is a lot to touch on. You're a Ditto, and your goal is to spruce up the abandoned landscape to make Pokemon and hopefully humans repopulate the area. Let me just say, the idea of Dittos turning into people, I don't like it. That just raises so many questions. I don't even like it when they transform into, like, a chair. It should be Pokemon and only Pokemon. But I will allow it since this is a spin-off. Yet it is a great protagonist for this game since the thesis statement of Pokopia seems to be streamlining all the cumbersome element from these types of crafting and item management games. You could call it a cozy, slow life simulator, but in reality, it is a material and menu management sim. You are making tough decisions about what to put in your pockets, what to use your resources on, where you're going to store or place items. At least that's how I play these games. Maybe people are just content with hanging out with Squirtle and Bulbasaur for the first 5 hours and are just taking it slow. But for me, I do like the rapid escalation of what you can do, and this game is filled with so many "this changes everything" types of upgrades and moments. And that's why Ditto is perfect, because he can learn moves from Pokemon and pull them off, just like in the real Pokemon games. There's no fiddling with items or equipping things, it's very quick to swap abilities and just use them. Think about all the times in Animal Crossing where you gotta pull out your shovel, then put back your shovel, then pull out the pole, then jump over the river, then put away the pole. Obviously, this game is quite different from Animal Crossing in many ways, but Animal Crossing definitely could learn a thing or two from Pokopia when it comes to just making things much smoother and quicker to play. Your abilities don't break, your scyther arms don't fall off, but you do need berries to replenish your PP stamina, a phrase that, listen, that's just what it's called. This is balanced well enough, but you get berries and food so easily that you kind of wonder, is there any real reason for this mechanic at all? I guess it is just to keep the berry economy from getting out of whack. And since the gameplay is fairly quick in terms of using items and abilities, it also complements the lizard brain penetrating gameplay loop, where you are constantly collecting things, making things, creating habitats to meet new Pokemon, undergoing missions, exploring, and also just doing whatever you want to do. Again, this is supposed to be a cozy, relaxing game, but there's really never a dull moment, and there's tons of things to do all the time. And this is what's really grabbing me, since I never feel like I'm stuck or I don't know what to do next. And the game is open enough to where it doesn't wall you at all. You can focus on what you want with minimum barriers. And Pokopia does strike a great balance between encouraging you to engage with all these different types of gameplay, like enticing you to do some crafting because it unlocks new items, and then the Pokemon want those items, and their happiness leads to unlocking more missions and things to make and do. And these new items might have a match you don't have, so better go explore. Everything leads into everything else in a very smart way. I think there is a fine line between this type of game being utterly addicting and completely boring. I kind of don't want to punch a tree to make a stone hammer, then that hammer leads to a bronze hammer and so on and so forth. On the surface, Pokopia is a lot like those games where you are just gathering sticks and rocks and a bunch of other mats that you will turn into stuff to progress. But progression feels less like a ladder with strict requirements and more like an expanding playing field that you can experiment in. I guess the fear is something that I've seen with games like Fantasy Life, where the loop is really addicting at first, but then you realize, oh, you just did the same thing over and over again in a new area. The grass is now yellow instead of green. And while the basics are the same in each area, like making habitats to meet new Pokemon, the layout of each region and the types of missions you undergo are all completely different from each other. And when you go to a new area, you really do think, whoa, I need to rethink how I've been playing the game. Even within one singular section, you have that thought, as so many different areas and biomes are hidden in plain sight. Like, if the entire game was just the first area, that would be enough. That could be its own game. It's that huge. I really can't wait to see what people who are actually good at this game do with it. I kind of cannot even fathom turning just one of these maps into a completely customized area a la Animal Crossing. And I assume many others are like me, but if you just want to follow the story missions and don't care about making everything pristine, there's still a tremendous amount of content here for people who just want to go through the story, then drop it and never play it again. Reviews are saying 20 to 40 hours for the story with a ton of content after that, and I'm maybe 10 hours in and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. This is going to be a forever game for a lot of people, just like Stardew and Animal Crossing. I'm trying to pinpoint what's the most fun mechanic in a game filled with them, and honestly, I do think it is making the habitats. You place items in a specific way to summon Pokemon. Yeah, you're going to start with that 2x2 grid of grass, but then the game throws some really strange habitats at you, and there are many that are intuitively designed so you can figure them out yourself before the game even tells you how to make them. Best habitat so far? I mean, to get Trubbish, you need to put a trash can, a trash bag, and a sign together. That's hard to beat. Magikarp has a stool and a fishing rod. Meryl makes you build a dock with a lamppost. And to get Mareep, you need to build like a little knitting station. It's definitely more fun to figure out one on your own, but even when the game shows you what you need, then you need to engage with the crafting and exploration elements to gather up all the goods. And when you get these Pokemon, you can talk to them. They speak in complete thoughts. They have likes and dislikes and thoughts and feelings. It is pretty amazing that they all feel pretty different from each other, pretty unique. I'm sure some Pokemon do share the same dialogue, but it's not immediately noticeable. They do typically have a very cheery, go-getter attitude, so we don't have the wide array of different personalities like with Animal Crossing. But this is one of the strengths of the game. It has a very positive vibe, everyone is cheering you on. You're all in this together to make the world a better place. I will say, slight spoilers, but there are legendary Pokemon in the game. And some of these legendary Pokemon don't sound like what I thought they would sound like. Why does one sound like a stereotypical New York cabbie? Maybe these guys just shouldn't be allowed to talk ever. They are kind of like gods. Also, the way you use Pokemon is so clever and something I've always wanted to see in the main games for a very, very long time. Each one has some special ability, or maybe even two. Bulbasaur has Growth, which lets flowers and vegetables instantly grow without waiting. Electric Pokemon have Generate, which can turn on machines and light up lampposts. Certain Pokemon can lead building construction. Some can leave mats around their homes. Others help you break down metal or wood. Every Pokemon has some purpose, and I've always thought that Pokemon should be able to interact with the environment in unique ways. Everyone hated HMs, but there needs to be some alternative to that instead of nothing. And having, the water Pokemon spray water in the world and having that affect something is exactly what I want to see. Some teach you abilities that you can use whenever, but you do need to bring certain Pokemon with you to do things. And how many can you bring? One at a time? No way. You can bring 5 Pokemon with you. And since you're a Pokemon, that's a full-fledged Pokemon team of 6 Pokemon. Who needs a trainer? Sometimes the pathing for these guys can be a little iffy though, so don't be surprised if Torchic falls into the ocean. Don't worry, it will come back. Oh, and some Pokemon have completely unique minigames attached to them. You can play jump rope with Bulbasaur, hide and seek with Zorua. There's no reason for this to be in the game, but that goes to show the depth and the sheer amount of secrets the game is hiding. Slight spoilers, I guess, but this is probably something that people have already figured out. The game takes place in the version of Kanto, and you visit familiar Kanto locales in the game. And seeing these dilapidated Kanto landmarks, it is such effective imagery for somebody who was obsessed with Gen 1. The aesthetics do feel like an HDified version of the Game Boy graphics, which I think really works for the setting. And you do find a lot of notes and letters from the humans who have disappeared, and these are genuinely interesting if you are invested in the region at all. It is very surreal to realize that, wait, where I'm standing was this place in red and blue. And that's why they released Fire Red and Leaf Green a week before. You got to get familiar with all those iconic locales before you see them in shambles in Pokopia. Other stuff, I tried the Cloud Islands mechanic, where you can visit islands somebody makes and you can freely customize with other people. This is absolutely great. It functions just like a Minecraft server. You can't bring your items, but you can bring your money and abilities. And you can take any items out or any of the new Pokemon you meet, But you do get to keep any recipes you learn, and how you got those Pokemon will be saved in your Pokedex, so you can duplicate that in your real game. It is nice to have a completely open area where you can just focus solely on creativity and cooperating with friends. And nobody needs to be on the island to join. Nobody needs to let you in. There's no insanely long animation when somebody joins. I love Animal Crossing, but again, the AC team could definitely learn a thing or two from Pokopia. Okay, I gotta ding it a bit. The storage situation. It's dire. There's no universal storage, so items you leave in a box are just in that box. You're not pulling them out of a different box. Now, this might be the standard for a lot of games like this. I know Stardew Valley is the same, but Animal Crossing has shown us the glory of a universal storage system. And since the ground you have to cover is so vast, I would have liked something like a PC storage feature where you can just shove items in there akin to Pokemon boxes from the main games. Maybe you do unlock this later, but think carefully about an elite storage strategy right now. Also, the game has a real-time mechanic, so day and night are reflected in the game based on your time. Along with this, building projects take time to finish. For example, a leaf den might take 15 minutes of real time, and the game will even say, this will be finished at 7:19 p.m. And for the bigger projects, like the Pokemon Center, it takes a whole day, so you gotta come back tomorrow. Now, obviously there are so many things to do in the game, you have multiple main story missions at the same time, so it's not like you are being hard-walled by this mechanic, but it is a little strange to add this to the game that is normally pretty open and free. I do feel that only Animal Crossing can kind of get away with the real-time mechanic, as so many things in that game are tied to it, but here it feels a bit more shoehorned in. Despite it not being the most flawless game ever made, I am loving Pokemon Pokopia, and this is quickly becoming one of my favorite Switch 2 games, and has potential to be the best Pokemon spin-off ever. Again, when this game was shown off, I thought, I don't know if this is for me. I love some cozy games, but some don't hit at all. But this one is an exciting adventure game wrapped in a cozy package. It's smooth to play, it takes advantage of the strengths of Pokemon as an idea, it's overflowing with different things to do, and it provides a ton of freedom, whether you want to focus solely on story missions, build your own town, or just explore. It's got it all. I'll definitely be talking about this game more on the podcast in the future once I roll credits. Hopefully people realize that Pokemon plus established gaming franchise equals a good game. It happened with Nobunaga's Ambition, it happened with Mystery Dungeon, it's happening now with Dragon Quest Builders. I'm still mad we never got the Neko Atsume with Pokemon game. That would have shattered all download records. Okay, that's all for games, now for the news. Pokopia isn't the only Pokemon game you need to shove into your brain. Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves was announced during the Pokemon Presents. This is Gen 10, everyone. We've hit quadruple-digit Pokemon and double-digit gens. And I gotta say, a good first impression. People, shockingly, seem pretty happy. Maybe because visually Scarlet and Violet brought the bar to the depths of the earth, so any semblance of that looks okay seems like a revelation. But objectively, that water looks incredible. I hope that Miiverse water guy saw this. Now, once upon a time, there was a massive Game Freak leak. 2, I want to say, in fact, so a lot of the details of the game have been out there. To be honest, though, I didn't know much beyond the names and the idea of the setting. It does seem like it takes place in an Indonesia-inspired archipelago, where you explore islands and you can even go under the water. Can you go in the sky? Are there sky islands a la Tears of the Kingdom? I honestly don't know, but I hope the Winds part of the title lives up to expectations, because waves? There's waves all over the place. I do like how dense the environments are. I like how we are seeing a lot of different biomes like swamps and volcanoes, so it won't just be water everywhere. We aren't going full 7.8 just yet. I still want to see those cities though. I felt the cities in Scarlet and Violet, while they often had fun theming, there was just very little to actually do in them and see beyond the gym. I'm playing Pokemon Leaf Green right now, which I'll get into, but even Pewter City has a science museum you can walk around in, some hidden items, you can come back later and get rare Pokemon. It has something unique about it. Let's bring that back to Pokemon cities and towns. And we also saw the starters, the grass bird Brout, the fire dog Pombon, and the water gecko called Gekwa. Decision made, I'm on team Gekwa. It just looks so sassy. And I'm a sucker for any amphibian or reptilian starter. The other two don't look bad, but it seems that Pombom is the overwhelming favorite. And guys, you just know that thing is going to stand up and get ripped. Stop kidding yourself. The most shocking thing about the trailer though, 2027. Not this year like it was heavily rumored, but next year. We could be getting a 5-year generation gap, the longest ever, and I gotta imagine it's at the very least a 4.5-year gap, since I doubt it's coming out in like January. This is a major system seller, so Nintendo would like it to be out sooner than later, But Nintendo and Game Freak got majorly burned by Scarlet and Violet's poor performance and reviews. But again, Scarlet and Violet sold extremely well. It's the second highest selling generation ever, and I think a lot of Pokemon fans are happy with the game, despite its hideous appearance and poor performance. Like right now on Switch 2, it plays perfectly fine. Still pretty ugly, but 60 FPS. And I have to commend Game Freak for not just thinking, it doesn't matter, we are bulletproof, let's just keep this 3-year gen cycle going. It seems like they are trying to deliver an experience that won't see the light of day until it is absolutely ready. That does raise the question though, what is coming out later this year for Nintendo? We all assumed Gen 10 would carry the Switch 2's holiday, but that's not happening. 3D Mario? 3D Zelda? Smash? Star Fox vs. Pikmin? Everything is on the table, which is pretty exciting. Other Pokemon game news. Like I said, Fire Red and Leaf Green are now available on Switch, the first ever official re-release. I've long wondered if there would be a Pokemon NSO app with the classic games, or if they would just sell the ROMs, and they're just selling the ROMs. I suppose that is the easiest avenue to go down. Thinking back, it is a little silly to expect Game Freak to make an app for the Nintendo Switch. It's $20 a pop, which is, yeah, a lot for a GBA game with almost nothing done to it, but again, this is like at least a 25-hour plus JRPG. You're getting your money's worth in terms of dollar to hour ratio. I suppose I can't sit here and say, it's totally worth it, you're getting a bargain, but the price didn't really faze me. I mean, Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, one of my personal favorite games of all time, and I often wonder, oh, is that secretly my favorite game ever? Out of every game that's ever come out, Pokemon Blue was at one point the one I was most obsessed with. Either way, it's just a classic JRPG that everyone should enjoy. Now, in terms of what's being done to this port, almost nothing. We don't have frame borders or options or any new features. Pokemon Home support is coming, which is cool, and it is likely a reason they would cite as why the price is so high. But thankfully, they did have the foresight to give you the event tickets after you beat the Elite Four, so you can get the Johto Legendaries and Deoxys. So in that sense, that is something that has never been accessible to the general public, and it is a great addition. Many people are able to finally experience these legitimately for the first time. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl get a lot of hate, but I did love that they folded all the events into the main game, which is really what you need to do with any remakes or even ports. Though, I mean, I kind of wish they went all the way with the Game Boy titles. It feels like Game Freak is saying, hey, did you play the Game Boy games? Guess what? You had your moment. It was the 20th anniversary. We released those games. They were out there. It's GBA's time to shine now. But I really don't like this concentrated attack on my goal to live in a perpetual state of 90s nostalgia. People have kind of poked into the code, and Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald might be coming, which is a nice bonus. I would definitely pick up Emerald, but yeah, I would also rebuy Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Crystal on Switch again. I am that sick. Other 30th anniversary stuff, in Japan, plushies based off of Pikachu's red and green sprite are now available. I definitely want that keychain plush. I was actually in Yokohama the day it released, so I swung by the Pokemon Center there, yet it was time tickets only, and it had a 4-hour wait. So maybe next time. And there's also a mini Game Boy where you can put in individual cartridges to listen to songs. All right, that is definitely something you could release. Going back to Pokopia a bit, there's definitely some fun marketing events happening right now in Tokyo and in Japan in general. The Hanzomon subway line in Tokyo is decked out with the Ditto theme. And by this, I mean a lot of Ditto designs inside and outside the trains. I never noticed it before, but the Hanzomon line's color is pretty much exactly the same as Ditto. Also, the huge screen on the side of the Shibuya Stream building has a unique Ditto animation. Imagine if there was like a 5-story Ditto screen. That's happening right now in Tokyo. And apparently there's some other Pokopia marketing in Osaka, like a huge Ditto staircase in Umeda. It does feel like they are ramping up the marketing at the very last moment. Like I haven't even seen billboard ads in the Yamanote line yet. But I imagine this is going to be a big seller in Japan with very long legs. But again, it is priced very high. It's nearly 9,000 yen. Compare this to the 6,500 yen that New Horizons debuted at. I know 6 years ago was 6 years ago, but I don't know if the general public is like, yeah, I'm cool with paying 2,500 yen more for a video game. And please, Nintendo, you gotta bring back the vouchers. We need them more than ever. An Indie World happened. Pretty solid show overall. Blueprints was the big ticket item that got shadow dropped. But in Japan, the last game highlighted was Homura Hime, a 3D action title with an anime aesthetic that is coming later this year. Other notable shadow drops include Mini Shoot Adventures, which I am definitely picking up, and Ooh, a puzzle platformer from Nama Takahashi, the creator of the excellent Elechead. I picked up Ooh, and I'll definitely talk about it on a future episode. Other big titles include Densha Attack, which guest Mr. Knives talked about glowingly on our TGS episode, and Heave Ho 2, the sequel to the very fun party platformer. The Japanese indie world had Yume Monogatari no Machi, which is similar to Unpacking, Little Witch in the Woods, which looks like a top-down adventure game, the visual novel Schrodinger's Call, and Japanese Rural Life Adventure was also shadow dropped, which is exactly what it sounds like. Out of those, Little Witch in the Woods looks kind of neat, mostly because it's at least somewhat Zelda adjacent in that it's a top-down pixel adventure game. So we've had Indie World, game-specific directs, partners showcase. Only thing left is a big boy direct. I have to imagine that it's coming sooner than later. The last game dated is Tomodachi Life in mid-April, and that's next month. Typically we know Nintendo's calendar about 3 months out, but we have 0 games dated for May. Yoshi could be dated on Mario Day, and that popping up in May makes a lot of sense, but again, no June game, no July game, but we still have games floating around in the ether like Yoshi, Rhythm Heaven, Fire Emblem, and Splatoon Raiders. Oh, and Xenoblade X Switch 2 edition came out, and was bad apparently. They somehow messed up one of the most technically impressive Wii U games, but I think they are fixing it now, or it has been fixed. We are again currently tapped out of Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, so I expect some first-party announcements sooner than later. And speaking of first-party announcements and Mario Day, Mario's Tennis, Mario Clash, and the original Mario vs. DK on GBA are coming to NSO on March 10th. I guess saving Mario's Tennis for Mario Day kind of makes sense, but again, I would have liked to have seen it at launch. But I do love this flow of Virtual Boy games. Keep them coming. Don't box up your VB just yet. So will we get a Mario Day Direct? I'm going to say likely. Yoshi date and maybe some new Mario game announcement isn't the craziest prediction, along with these new NSO drops and maybe some movie news. And there may or may not have been a Mario Kart World leak, so we might hear about an update coming to that soon. Plus, the Switch 2 edition of Wonder is a few weeks away. If we are getting a full-blown Direct, I do expect some Mario-related announcements on Tuesday. Again, no Pokemon Gen 10 this year, so could 3D Mario carry the holiday? I doubt it will be just that, but I expect Nintendo to really focus on bumping up software numbers in fiscal year 2026. So this holiday could have a lot more heavy hitters than we expect. All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks as always for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your favorite app. Leave a 5-star review as well, it really helps. This podcast is also available on YouTube, so like and subscribe there as well. I'm on Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, just search for Tokyo Game Life, or find the links in the podcast description. If you like the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends and on social media. The next episode will be on March 22nd. See you next time. Matane!